If your snare drum sounds weak and lifeless, chances are you're missing something crucial in the recording process. Now, we've all been there. You lay down a drum track and it sounds great, but once you start layering in other instruments, you notice that your snare doesn't quite have the punch or presence to cut through in the mix. This can be super frustrating, especially when you've just captured a great performance. And even if you're not recording your own drums, keep watching because I'm going to share some ways that you can build a great snare sound right in the box. Now, a common solution to fix a dead snare might be to reach for an EQ. Maybe you boost the high frequencies to add some snap to your sound, or you go looking around in the mid-range to kind of finesse the body a little bit. And while this can work in some scenarios, it often leaves the underlying issue unresolved. Now sure, EQ boosts can hype up your drum sound, but they can't boost information that isn't there to begin with. For that, you have to get it right at the source. But before we talk about how to source a great snare recording, let's talk about your source for unlimited music uploads. DistroKid. DistroKid is the music distributor that I recommend to get your music onto online streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon, and many more. With DistroKid, you can enjoy unlimited uploads without them taking a cut of your earnings. And DistroKid's fast and predictable upload times allow you to get your music onto online streaming platforms much faster than other distributors. Their services are easy to use with their app available for iOS and Android. And you can get a discount off your first year subscription with DistroKid by using the link in the description. There's also a link available to students and teachers for an even larger discount. So even if you can't fix your dead snare drum, and keep watching for more help with that, DistroKid has your back, providing fast and reliable service so that you can plan and promote predictable releases. So if you're working with high energy or aggressive music and you're really looking for a full and powerful snare sound that's going to cut through a wall of distorted guitars, here's an even better fix. Leave your snare as undampened as possible to keep that natural ring. So if you're looking to record something with high energy, let that resonance live by keeping the snare head open and allowing it to resonate. You're going to get more of that body, more of that tone, more of that ping sound that's really going to help cut through the mix. So avoid putting a wallet or moon gels on your snare drum like you would in a practice room. Now, I just want to point out that I have gotten a lot of resistance from drummers when I bring this up, because this is the way that they're used to hearing their drums, right? They go into a practice room, they toss their wallet on the snare drum, they go ham and shed for a while. And I really do get that, but most of the time, a practice room is not going to sound great, especially if it's not treated. So killing that overtone from your drums is really going to help to keep them dry and punchy, and it's going to allow you to lock into your time by focusing on the attack of each drum. And this is also the same reason why you see drummers shoving a whole bunch of stuff into their kick drum. It makes the kick sound super deep and punchy, and it cuts down on all of those ringing overtones. Vic Firth even makes these amazing earmuff headphones, and practicing drums with them sounds amazing because the attack of the drum cuts through and they block out all of the other loud sounding overtones. And honestly, I think that everyone loves the sound of dead drums, but sometimes they don't always work in a mix, especially if you're working for high energy music like rock, punk, or metal. So this ring or ping is really going to help your snare to cut through the mid-range without getting eaten up by all of the other elements like guitars or vocals. Otherwise, the drum is not going to have enough harmonic content to actually keep up with the energy and not sound tiny. The extra resonance adds power so that your snare isn't lost among the other instruments. So let's hear how these two different snare sounds fit in with a mix, with a programmed kit, and some distorted guitars. For this video, I'm using my Yamaha steel snare. I got this at a thrift shop for about $40. It's the only drum that I own, so that's why I'm using it in with a programmed kit. I've got this mic'd up with a SE V7 on top facing into the drum to capture a decent amount of the body and tone of the drum. And I've got a Samson CO2 for the underside, a small diaphragm condenser that's just a little bit offset from the snare wires. Both mics are going into my API 512C preamps, and I've got a pad and a polarity flip going on for the bottom mic. So the first example will switch back and forth between the undampened snare and a snare that's dampened with a wallet. Now I also have another type of mute from Big Fat Snare Drum. If you're not familiar, it's sort of like a second skin that covers most of the top head, and this one happens to have some little tambourine jangles on it. I typically really like these mutes for a dead sounding drum because I find that they don't choke out the tone as much, perhaps because the muting effect is spread evenly across the skin as opposed to having all the weight concentrated in a single area. So up next, we'll listen and compare the Big Fat Snare Drum mute against the open snare and the wallet snare. So which one did you like best? Let me know in the comments. The open drum had a great smack to it. To me, this sounds the way a drum should in this style. And the wallet did have a similar attack to the open drum, but it felt choked and there wasn't as much decay. And then we come to the Big Fat Snare Drum. It was fat and it was splashy and was much deeper than the other two. Honestly, I didn't hate it. Up next, we'll hear some EQ and compression applied to all three versions to see if processing can make a difference. For this, I'm starting with some FET compression from an 1176. I'm going with a fast attack and release, and really I'm just trying to squash these and bring out more tone from the drum. And that's going into some analog style EQ from the SSL channel strip. I'm boosting some mid-range at 800 Hertz to bring out the tone of the drum, as well as some 1 to 2K to bring out that point. And finally, I'm boosting around 10 to 12K to brighten up the snare. And I'm also adding that high frequency boost to the bottom snare to brighten up the wires. Let's check that out. So again, the open snare had a great tone. It had a strong attack, especially when I really connected with those rim shots. To me, that's how a rock snare should sound. And then we come to the wallet, and even with all of that help with EQ and compression, I felt that the snare still sounded tiny, puny. There's no energy behind it. There's really no saving it after the fact because all of that energy has been taken out by the wallet. And then, you know, the Big Fat Snare Drum, this one is just one big splat. The mute really lives up to its name. This is a big fat snare drum. And while I don't know if it would be my go-to for a style like this, I think it would really work as like a side snare drum. But what if you're not going to be recording your own drums? What if you're going to be using canned sounds like I did for the rest of this kit? So the biggest tip I can give you is begin with a great sample. Search through your sample library and choose a raunchy snare sample with that ping in its tone. And if you're using a plugin like Slate Trigger, you can add room mics where possible and blend those in to get some depth and ambience out of your snare. And if that's not enough, you can take your dirty pingy snare and you can layer it in with a more punchy snare to make something that really cuts through the mix. Okay, we're here in Logic and I'm using their drum kit designer, so I'll pull that up, click on the snare and search through the options. Okay, nice. It's funny, that one kind of sounds like the wallet snare from our first couple examples. That one sounds much more splatty, like our big fat snare drum mute. And this one definitely sounds more like the open snare, so we're gonna go with that one. Great, so now I'm gonna open up Trigger, and we're gonna see if we can find another sample to layer in with that. So go to our browser, open up our snares, and we'll just start at the top. So yeah, they name these really weird things. I don't know what NRG or SSDR means, but usually the Z1 and Z3 are going to be the close mics. And then if you were to pick one of these are like room mics. So let's just try that. Okay, I'll turn down these a bit and back off the mix knob so we can hear a blend of the wet and dry snares. Yeah, so that room mic really adds some power and ambience to the snare and helps it cut through the rest of the mix. Okay, let's take one more listen. Very nice. So even if you won't be recording your own drums, you can still take the tips from this video and apply them to your own situation to layer together a great snare sound. So give this method a shot and let me know how it works for you. And I want to hear from you. What's the biggest mixing challenge that you're experiencing right now? Drop a comment below or DM me and let's see if we can solve it together. I hope this video helped you out. Leave a like if it did, and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
When all we do is talk, 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 it's not my fault. I can't get enough of you. And even when I'm in my bed, you're in my head. I'm drunk on the thought of you, the thought of